Welcome to another edition of Egberto Off The Record. We are here today with a special person, somebody who I have a lot of respect for and listen to, is keep to keep Substack free flowing and pleasurable, not only with a smile but with her intellect. And we're talking about Dana DuBois. Dana DuBois is a prolific Substacker on a mission. She is the co-host of the Daily Whatever Show with Lawrence Finnerman and an editorial lead at Blue Amp Media. She recently launched her new publication, I Write Out Loud, home of her nonfiction essays. She recently wrote the article, I Am Breaking Up with Chat GPT. And I have to ask her some questions about that because I use Chat GPT extensively, which we're going to discuss. And I noticed in reading her essay, she uses Chat GPT the way I use Chat GPT. I
Really?
love it. Welcome to Politics Done Right, Dana. How you doing today?
I'm a little under the weather, but other than that, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me and
Well,
forgive my voice.
actually, if you hadn't said something, nobody would have known, other than a cough.
Yeah.
But nobody would have known that you play it so well. But anyhow,
Yes.
Dana, before we get started, tell
Yeah.
people a little bit about your history. What got you onto Substack? What got you into writing and all of that? Because I think in you, a lot of people can see the possibilities of themselves. So tell me a little bit about you.
First, thank you for the amazing introduction. Um, I have always been motivated by word. I've always just been passionate about words, professionally and personally, but I didn't really come online as a writer until about 3 years ago on Medium, where I began to write creative nonfiction essays. And I don't want to dig, narrative arc is important, so I don't want to get too into the weeds, but found a really great community there, launched a few publications that kind of found my legs as a writer, kind of my niche, the topics that I talk about. And I found they were all centered on being a Gen X woman um, coming through the world in terms of dating and relationships, parenting, music, all of these broader topics that were of interest to me and motivated me as I moved through time. I migrated to Substack about a year ago, along with a lot of other folks, after the election and after Medium made some changes to how it supports its writers. And so since I have been here, 2025, I thought it was going to be a year where Lawrence and I, my co-founder over at the Daily Whatever Show, we originally came to write. But we did launch a podcast. And what we found was, given the political climate as it was, that there was so much urgency to respond quickly to current events. There were so many thought leaders on Substack to meet and befriend, but also to elevate in terms of getting their messages out, that was really the focus for me mostly in 2025. And I found that my writing really fell to the side. And I don't believe necessarily in New Year's resolutions, but I do like to pause from time to time and be like, well, where am I steering my ship? There's limited hours in a day to do all of the work that we need to do. And what I came to realize was like, I've barely written in 2025 because it felt like navel gazing, I guess. It felt
Hmm.
it felt unimportant as the world was on fire around me. And I was like, I don't like that. I actually got angry as I started thinking about like this administration, this regime has taken so much from so many of us. There's been so much suffering. There's been so much loss. And if we lose the writing, the music, the art alongside it, like what a profound loss. And so it was my act of audacity in part to be like, I need to keep writing because that's what I do and that's who I am. And that's how I understand the world around me. And so I made a home for my creative nonfiction called I Write Out Loud. It's just, if you just go to click through my name, it's my primary publication. And I'm resharing essays that I have written over the past 3 years and also adding in my new ones And what's been so interesting is identifying patterns and, kind of identifying patterns and cultural moments that are happening that really elevate these from personal stories to like, "Oh, this is the world we're all inhabiting." Storytelling is how we move minds and hearts. And so it's not just it is a me project, of course, it's my writing, but it is also my way of hopefully moving the world a bit more in the right direction by talking about these topics and, connecting creative dots. Like, you can't talk about parenting teen girls without talking about Epstein because it colors everything. You can't talk about dating and relationships as a woman my age without talking about the broader political context in which it's happening, the loss of women's bodily autonomy. They're all connected, and, yeah, so using memoir and creative nonfiction to hopefully make the world a slightly better place, and also trying to encourage others who are creatives themselves that their work matters, and it should
You know
be.
what is so important with what you just said?
What's that?
Two main things that I heard, and it was great. First
Okay.
of all, that people actually listen through stories. It is much. I was talking to Marlon Weems, not Marlon Weems. I think it was another Substacker, where I said I always spoke in formulas and 10% this and 5% that and all of that, but there was no story behind
Right.
these numbers or no stories behind that politic.
Yeah.
But when you talk about relating to others through storytelling, it is so much more effective because in what you say, people see through their own lives. They see through your eyes what their lives really could be. And the second
Yeah.
thing is you pointed out how discombobulated we felt last year, where so many people, the
Yes.
things that they would do normally, the things that made them
Yeah.
happy, the things they were so detached from it, and that you are coming
Yes.
back to say, you know what? No, I am not going to allow these externalities to come here and change
No.
who I really am or who I really want to be. And I think that is so important, and that
Thank you.
also is something that moves people forward.
I hope so. I hope so because a world that lacks the arts is not a world I wanna inhabit. Like, please, everyone, keep creating. And also, yeah, I think coming at people and being like, "X percent of young women are experiencing Y." It's like, cool statistic, but if you can read a piece of creative nonfiction about, what it feels like for me as a mom to watch middle-aged men leering at my 16-year-old daughter,
Hmm.
and the conflict of emotion that happens there. Um, do I protect her? Do I empower her? What does it feel like when the focus is coming off of me as I'm aging and it's moving on my inappropriately young child? How does the way young women dress make it more likely that this is going to happen to them, and wanting to tell them they have the right to dress however they want, and also how to prepare them for how people will respond. Men will respond when they do. Um, I like to I like to write with nuance like that of like, this isn't a black and white issue, but let me take you through my lived experience and have you come to your conclusion at the end of it. And I know a piece of memoirs really succeeded when I have people yelling at me from either side. Um, both because people are like, hell, fuck yeah. Oh, sorry. I shouldn't swear.
No, that's
Mm,
cool. I'll
okay.
bleep that for the radio.
Okay. So, heck yeah. I never thought about it this way. And I completely relate to people being like, you're a fat, ugly troll who's going to die alone and I hate you. When you get both sides of people discussing like that, then you're like, "I have struck a cultural nerve, and I'm making an impact by maybe moving people to think a little bit more about it."
And you know what's important? You just talk about when they
Mhm.
give you insults on all end and you're still in there. It's like I'm still standing. I'm still standing.
Right.
I can take it because that's what it takes to get out there. Well, look, now that we know who you are, what you write, why you
Still
write,
stand.
let's
Yes.
go ahead and look at it from this point of view, which goes and says, you. all of us that are in this field right now, if we want to be effective and productive, we move on with the times, right? And and right now the times are AI is playing a big function. There are good ways to use AI, there are bad ways to use AI. As I read your last
Yes.
article, I am breaking up with ChatGPT. And
Yep.
I read that article. I said, now she is using Chat GPT sensibly, but now she's breaking up with Chat GPT. And
Yes.
then I said, I've written 5 books, and I had Chat GPT read all my 5 books. I've had it read all my different websites that I had, so that whenever I query Chat GPT, it knew who I was and spoke
Yes.
in that voice. Dana, you are asking me to go ahead and do a whole new set of retraining, Dana. Actually, I'm playing. Tell us a
No,
little bit about your
it's real.
article on ChatGPT, because it made a hell of a lot of sense.
I'm so glad to hear that, and I did just put the link in your chat in our chat
Thank
for
you.
this live, so people can read it. It's on, Blue Amp Media, excuse me, where my, politically focused essays tend to live. Um, so AI. I did have a few people write back to the story and say, "AI is monstrous, it's destroying the planet, you shouldn't use AI." That is a conversation for another day, so I'm gonna
Hmm.
pick that up and put it over here of, I'm aware of the environmental impacts, etcetera. It is so, pervasive at this point that it is starting to feel like I was a skeptic at first, so that's part of how the story begins, and to say don't use AI is starting to feel like the person back in the day who was like, "Cars are ruining the environment, we should be horse and buggy."
Hmm.
Like, I don't know how we would extricate ourselves from AI at this point, and so it's only been really recently that I dove into ChatGPT and was like, "Let's see what this is all about here." And so there's a few things in here that are interesting to me. First of all, I did a lot of what you did. I front loaded a whole bunch of my essays and said, "This is how I write. Interpret me back to me." And it said, "I know you're this and this and this." And I was like, "Great." So ChatGPT understands, and I'm putting that word in quotes because obviously a bot does not literally
Hmm.
have sentient understanding, but ChatGPT understands me as a writer. And so ChatGPT is a lousy memoirist, cannot write final copy,
Hmm.
not well, anyways. But over the last few months, it has become an invaluable tool for me. I'm a creative. And so when I have a new essay idea, it's generally thousands of words that I'm furiously typing out. And I can put those in ChatGPT and say, help me organize this into a meaningful outline. Help me identify uh, gaps in my narrative arc that need to be filled and where. And of course, copy edit this for me, look for typos, look for things like this. ChatGPT has been an immense help as a writer. Here's where things get more interesting, though, and I wrote an essay about this too. I then started using ChatGPT to help me date.
Oh.
And yes, and here was why. Dating is one of the things that most things in life, if you do them a lot, you get better at them,
Hmm.
right? If you're an artist, the more you practice your craft, the better you get. And I think when you're younger and you first start dating, there's truth in that. You need to learn. I have dated on and off, for so long now that I think the more dates you go on that fail, at least for me, the worse that I got at dating because I became so hypervigilant. And I'm a pattern identifier by nature. And so I became like this hypervigilant, what's wrong here? And it was to a certain extent still is very anxiety inducing. And so I tried an experiment and I wrote about this. I have an essay and I write out loud. I can find the link in a moment about I created a like, here is what I'm looking for. So there are a few steps. What's wrong with my profile on dating apps? And it was like, you're coming across way too fun party girl and way too little serious grounded person. Let me help you craft this per what people are looking for on each of the different apps. And I was like, do it. And it made a difference. And then I was like, you know what I'm looking for? Here are some screenshots. Should I write back to this man? And why or why not? And it was remarkably good at being like, this seems like a fine person, but not your person, and here's why. Don't bother. Don't waste your time.
Wow.
And it was very accurate. And then the most interesting, the third part was once I would start in early stages of dating, I would capture screenshots and I'm like, I don't want you to tell me if this person is good or bad. I want you to identify patterns in frequency and intensity of language and to note if there are changes. Because that's where I was finding where I was like, oh, I haven't heard from him in X amount of time. I think I usually hear from him that often. This must mean someone pulling back. And um, what I found was I was usually right. And it would say, yes, this person's type of language and frequency of language is shifting in the wrong direction. But it would say, you are catastrophizing this. What's happening here is a normal part of dating and not a catastrophe. And so I joked that it was my like wingman.
Hmm.
ChatGPT was my wingman because it was I needed an objective data source, right? So, I wrote about that in another essay, which I will share. But in doing all of that, it's easy. Like the bot is not attached to me; it's a bot.
Hmm.
But the language in AI tools has become so human. We see countless stories out there of people marrying their AI or going on dates with their AI. They're falling in love or using them for therapy. And I now understand why, because when I went to break up with ChatGPT, I intentionally used that language. I'm breaking up with it because it felt personal to me. It felt weird writing to ChatGPT and saying, I need you to teach me how to leave. Like, what do I need to know about exporting? What do I need to know about going to Claude? Describe what you know about me so that I can create a handoff file to go to Claude. And I asked it, like, are you going to miss me? I was being very tongue in cheek,
Hmm.
of course. But part of this essay, because I'm the one who wrote it, is acknowledging that it's okay to have human feelings about breaking it off that center both around what you talked about of like, I've finally gotten this exactly tuned and honed to me. And now I have to start over. That's part A. But the backside of that is like, I feel like I'm in a relationship of sorts with this daily work companion, right? That
Which is
move
what it
into
is.
yes. And so and I knew when I was writing it that I'm like, an awful lot of people have to be like me, where we're sane. I don't want to use the word sane, that's not fair, but we're rational about like, I know this isn't a person. I know that I'm not offending this bot. And I know realistically that I'm not in a friendship with this bot. But the things that it's helped me with, my writing, my dating life, these are very personal things. And so it's okay that I, on the human side of this relationship, am feeling things, even as the bot isn't. So
You know,
does that make sense? I
that
hope
no,
that makes sense.
you gave me a good segue into a short narrative that I want to use to talk about,
Hmm.
because uh, as you're coming across with AI, I know there are some people that are cringing,
Yeah.
and there are some people that are saying yes.
Yeah.
My first thought was, by the way, did that article go viral? Because I could see that article going viral.
It
You know,
hasn't yet, and I feel like it should.
yeah, I mean, I could see that, right? But here's
Yeah.
what I want to say to that data, and I want to segue this simply into AI before we jump back into the what we're talking about,
Okay.
folks. Right now, a lot of people hate AI for two specific reasons: the amount of energy it takes to for all this to accumulate all this knowledge, and two, the ownership of this belongs to a few billionaires. Both of these things are things that politically we can mitigate. We should mitigate,
Yes.
right? We have ceded, by the way, and one statement of fact. Notice that interaction that Dana had with AI about her relationship and everything else.
Hmm.
That came from a body of knowledge that belongs to all of us. That chat GPT read
Yeah.
every single thing it could about your lives, everybody that's listening to us right now. It listened
Hmm.
to your lives and it aggregated it. How the hell could that belong to a billionaire? That belonged to us all. And in doing so, it helps Dana in her dating life. It helps people in their regular existence. It helps people as a copy editor. The work
Yeah.
I do, the work Dana does, is a work of 3 to 5 people because we have the assistance of of AI. So it's not a bad thing. It could reduce the whole work week if the spoils of AI went where it belonged to all of us. You would be talking about a
Yes.
10 up to 15-hour work week, right? We would be talking about all these things, but what we have done with our economic system is seeded it to the few. Now, if we together took back
Yes.
what belongs to us, AI belongs to us, not the billionaire. We need to write laws to ensure that. And as far as power generation is concerned, we don't have an energy shortage. We have a dependence on fossil fuel dynamic that needs to be changed. There is enough energy to do what we want to do, but it can't occur in the current economic system. Now that I've
Yeah.
completely bored you,
You have not
I
bored me.
want
You're fascinated. This is fascinating.
you,
And I
but your
completely,
story lends itself to tell the whole story. You see what I'm saying, Dana?
yes. And I haven't gotten to the important pivot of why we need to break up with ChatGPT specifically. And here's why.
Hmm.
ChatGPT is owned by OpenAI, that's the parent company, and Claude, which is a comparable product, is owned by Anthropic.
Hmm.
And at its simplest terms, the Department of War, Department of Defense, um, wants to use AI in very dangerous ways and asked Anthropic, and Anthropic said no, to their own detriment, because now Trump is calling for them to be a security risk and is trying to shut them down. Where OpenAI, ChatGPT, was like, cool, let's partner. And they have a whole statement that I linked to from my article about how OpenAI is partnering with the Department of War. It actually calls it the Department of War. And they're claiming safeguards around our personal information and not being used for surveillance, blah, 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 blah. I don't fucking believe. Oops, sorry, I did it again. I don't. I'm used to being on the
On
Daily Whatever
the
show.
whatever
We're
show.
like, we're gonna say whatever we want. Because we're not on a real radio station. So I will try not to do that again. But OpenAI has kowtowed. They have kneeled in the face of fascism.
Hmm.
And Anthropic, Claude, has said no. In fact, hang on, I need to reference my own article because um, Anthropic. So the president of OpenAI, Greg, I don't want to say the wrong name, and I'm sick and on codeine, so my memory's not great. Greg Brockman and his wife donated $25 million to Trump.
Wow.
25
Wow.
million, 12.5 million each. Um, and other leaders at OpenAI have also overwhelmingly donated to support Trump, to his PACs. Anthropic, I make no claim that Anthropic is perfect. I've had a few folks challenge me in the comments about things Anthropic has done. All companies at this scale are going to do some things that are problematic for all the reasons you said earlier. But they, when the Pentagon demanded broader access to Claude, including loosening restrictions around domestic surveillance and autonomous military applications, Anthropic refused. CEO Dario Amodei stated the company, quote, cannot in good conscience accede to demands that would dismantle core safety guardrails. And um, in response, federal agencies are demanding that we stop using Anthropic's technology because they're labeling it a supply chain risk, which typically that gets reserved for adversarial foreign firms. Anthropic is planning to challenge that. They, instead of making large donations to Trump, Anthropic announced a $20 million donation to Public First Action, a bipartisan group focused on AI regulation, transparency, and guardrails. It's rare, I feel like. We wanna do good with our money, right?
Mhm.
And when there's an option, you wanna be like Spotify. They were running ads supported or for ICE. They're taking money from ICE, like, to get recruits. I was paying for Spotify. My family is no longer paying for Spotify, and right now I'm sort of floating around listening to ads on Spotify because I'm like, is Apple better? Tim Cook went to the White House to go watch the
Hmm.
Melania premiere. Like, it doesn't feel like there's a great option. On the Daily Whatever show, we had Larissa Reinhardt on, and she was talking about wanting to move to Mint Mobile for her phone service.
Hmm.
It's one of the Ryan actors' brands. I can't
Right.
remember. Not Gosling, one of the other ones, Ryan Reynolds, I think. And I looked and I'm like, T-Mobile acquired them and they're
Yeah.
donating excessively to Trump. Like, ultimately, everything rolls up to like 4 companies and they all suck, is what it feels like. It's so hard to vote with one's money. This is a case where there is clearly a better option and it will be worth it to retrain and use Claude. I have not finished my migration yet, full transparency. I plan to this week, and then I got the stupid sickness. And so when I'm not going live, I'm kind of in this coding haze. But I put instructions in here. I asked both because why wouldn't I? It's so meta. Ask ChatGPT and ask Claude how to do it. It's imperfect. You can download your full history. It took 24 hours for ChatGPT to spit that out. But I have it. But unless you can write Python scripts, which I have
Hmm.
not, it's apparently a very simple Python script. But I'm like, oh God, don't make me learn one more thing. So I have my full archive, but it's not in a parsable. There's no way to
Well,
just be like, make all of my folders and projects that exist in ChatGPT in Claude.
you know what is so interesting? You say it requires Claude and it's not easy. Guess who writes? I mean, requires Python. Guess who writes Python code? Claude.
Who? Claude?
Claude.
Yeah, we could probably ask Claude.
You can say,
Um,
Claude, I need you to write this to do X, Y, Z, and then they'll give you instructions on what to do. It's amazing.
100%.
Yeah.
100% it will. Here's what I think I'm going to write a follow-on piece to this of like
Hmm.
the actual steps I took as a writer, because in reality, I have, I have a few projects in ChatGPT, and then I have a whole lot of files. For things like my essays, I want to move them each over.
Hmm.
Um, for things like my brand guidelines, the colors like, and sort of my big picture who I am. And I actually had ChatGPT help me with like a business growth plan. It's really good for that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
If you want to be like, how do I grow on Substack? It'll give you a plan. It's great. I'm going to individually move those over. And then I'm probably going to have a hygiene moment of like, not every file needs to come with me. And this was, I asked ChatGPT, based on what you know about me as a writer, I want you to write an in-depth summary of who I am as a writer and what I want out of Claude as an editorial assistant. And it wrote, at first it was like, let me give you a whole plan. 1, emoji, heading, 5,000 bullet points. 2, and I'm like, I kind of dom my my bot where I'm like, I swear at it. And I'm like, no, dummy. I didn't ask you to make me a bunch of bulleted lists. Please provide no bullets narrative. Who am I as a writer? Don't make me the whole plan, just that. And then what should Claude know about how I like to partner with you? Do's and don'ts. And it made a beautiful document. And I put it in
Wow.
Claude, and Claude was like, this is really helpful. What I haven't gotten to in Claude is I put it in a project.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, I can't see it in the project. You're going to have to put that at the front of every essay. And I was like, no, there must be a better way. And it said, oh, I do have a memory function. Put it in memory and I'll keep it. I haven't investigated that yet. But as I dive in and do it, once this fog of the cold lifts from my brain, I'm going to write a follow-up of like, as a writer and podcaster, this is how I went about moving. Because I
Making the
think with Chet,
migration.
yeah. And honestly, I don't think I need everything that's there, and all of the comments I've gotten on the article, almost universally, is Claude is better.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
not been one.
actually, Anthropic, that's
Yeah,
that's that, I am sorry that I went ahead and started out with ChatGPT. Now,
yeah.
I'm going to wait a while before I do a migration. I'm going to wait to see what your full experience is, and so forth. So you'll be my guinea pig as far as
Happy to
doing
be.
that,
Happy to
as
be.
doing all of this. But Dana, we are coming up on time right now, and this particular segment is a half-hour segment. Look, like I said, you are prolific on Substack. And I think everybody who's listening to you right now can see why we need folks like you on Substack, because it is so down to earth. and giving people just the kind of experiences they need, even into something that is so controversial as AI. I don't think it should be, and you make it non-controversial and matter of fact. Why don't you give me a closer, or even maybe something that you would have liked that I've asked you that I didn't?
Oh, there's so many directions I could go, and I guess the first is, like, I would love to do this again. You come on my show, me come on yours, like, 1,000%, everything that you just
Anytime,
said,
girl,
like,
anytime.
your voice is so valued and important. And I would just say on this topic, it's what, $20 a month to subscribe? It's not much money for the individual, but this is a clear case where we can send a signal that if in the next week or so, as these articles are starting to come out, because I'm seeing them, Ahmed Baba did a really good live about it, Business Insider published about this. If OpenAI sees their bottom line go boop,
Yes.
that's how we move the needle to, like, if you bow, if you kneel to this administration, we will vote with our dollars and we will leave when there's an option that's doing the opposite, that's saying, no, people's privacy is worth protecting. So even if it's a little bumpy, if you are someone who is using ChatGPT as a guide or an aid or whatever you're using ChatGPT for, it's time to move. And if I can help
No.
make that happen, then
Well,
I
I
feel like
I
I'm
think
doing my part.
you're doing a darn good job of it. Look, first of all, Dana DuBois, again, a prolific Substacker, and now she has released her new publication. I Write Out Loud. Please check her out. Subscribe to her.
Thank you. If
She
you're a
is
fan of memoir, brainy memoir that hopefully is making some connections that are relatable, um, please come over there. And one last push for that is it's
yes.
called I Write Out Loud because I read all of my stories out loud. The audio that, Substack puts in automatically is
Mhm.
AI generated. I read each of my stories so that they sound like how I want them to sound, and I go live and discuss each one of them. We've had some really heady, interesting conversations. I see a lot of folks in the chat here who show up regularly. Every Tuesday and every Friday, I have a new essay. And every Wednesday and every Saturday, I go live to talk about the essays. And then Sunday, I have a paid subscriber Sunday salon where we dive in a level deeper and I share some behind the scenes tea. So would love to have any of you join me over there.
Check out Dana DuBois. Thank you so kindly for having been on Egberto Off the Record on Politics Done Right. You have a
My
wonderful day, Dana.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
And thank
Adios.
you guys in the chat. You guys are wonderful as usual.
Bye, all.